Port Charles had always worn twilight well. The sky over the waterfront glowed in fading swirls of lavender, gold, and pale blue, soft, deceptive beauty masking the chaos that always simmered beneath its surface. From the upper floors of General Hospital, the city looked peaceful, almost serene. But Britt Westbourne knew better than anyone that appearances in this town were nothing but fragile illusions. She stood near one of the wide windows in the main corridor, arms crossed, tapping her thumb anxiously against her elbow. For the past 36 hours, she'd been restless, pacing mentally through memories that didn't fit together, and chasing answers she shouldn't have needed to chase at all. Why now? Why Sidwell? Why the sudden interest in her? Britt had crossed paths with the elusive financier and corporate ghost, Grant Sidwell, only 3 times in her life. Each interaction had carried the strange weight of something unspoken, something unfinished, and yet she'd brushed it away. After all, she had lived with enough chaos growing up under the shadow of her mother, the infamous Lisa Lebrecht. She understood secrets. She understood lies. She understood men who promised everything and delivered nothing. But Sidwell didn't fit into any familiar category. He wasn't a lover. He wasn't an enemy. He wasn't a patient. He wasn't anything. Or so she had believed. Until last night, when he'd asked to meet with her, privately, and she'd seen an expression in his eyes she couldn't decipher: fear, anguish, apology, longing, and regret. So much regret. The kind of regret only a parent carried. The kind of regret that made her stomach drop. Now he was supposed to be on his way to the hospital to meet her again, and Britt felt her nerves twisting tighter with every passing second. She was Britt Westbourne. She had survived a toxic childhood, humiliating scandals, heartbreaks, illnesses she thought would kill her, and a lifetime of choices that felt heavy enough to break her spine. She was a survivor. So why, suddenly, was she terrified? The elevator doors opened with a muted chime. Britt inhaled sharply before she turned. Grant Sidwell stepped out slowly, almost hesitantly. He didn't look like the ruthless business shark the tabloids made him out to be. Tonight, he looked older, tired, human. His suit jacket hung slightly off-center, as if he'd put it on too quickly. His usually slicked-back hair was slightly mussed. Even from a distance, Britt could see the tremor in his hand as he slid it into his pocket. "Dr. Westbourne," he greeted, voice low, almost trembling. "Mr. Sidwell." Britt forced her spine straight, lifting her chin. "You said you needed to speak again." "Something urgent." His throat bubbed in a swallow. "Yes. Very urgent." He gestured toward the private conference room near the nurses' station, one of the places doctors used for difficult conversations with families. Britt felt a chill crawl up her spine. "I think I'd rather talk here," she said quickly, trying to maintain some emotional distance. Sidwell's gaze softened. "I don't want an audience," he murmured. Britt hesitated. She glanced toward the nurses' station, empty except for Epiphany sorting charts, and exhaled. "Fine. A few minutes. She could handle this." They stepped into the room, and Sidwell closed the door behind them. The silence stretched thin and brittle. Britt crossed her arms again. "Just say it," she said, louder than she intended. "Whatever you didn't say yesterday, just spit it out." Sidwell's eyes lifted to hers, and for the first time, she noticed tears gleaming at the edges. "I never wanted it to be like this," he whispered. "I never wanted to come into your life with more secrets. You've had enough of that." Her breath hitched at the mention of secrets, her Achilles heel. "Then don't," she snapped. "Stop circling around it. Tell me what this is about." Sidwell inhaled shakily. "I promised your mother I wouldn't interfere in your life," he said softly. Britt froze. "My mother?" Sidwell nodded slowly. "Liesl," he said. "She made me promise decades ago." Britt's heart began pounding. Hard, erratic. Her mind raced, trying to stitch pieces together that didn't fit. "You're lying," she said, though it came out weaker than she intended. "My father was Faison." "No." Sidwell stepped closer, not threateningly, but desperately. "No, Britt. You were told he was. But Caesar Faison, he is not your biological father." The room tilted. "What?" Britt whispered. Sidwell's breath trembled as he said the words that shattered the floor beneath her. "Britt, I am your father." The words ripped something open inside her. A gasp tore from her throat. Her vision blurred, then swayed, then darkened. "No, no, no, no," she whispered,
stumbling back. Sidwell reached out. Britt. But she didn't hear the rest.
The floor tilted, her knees buckled, and everything went black as Britt Westbourne collapsed at her biological father's feet. When consciousness slowly returned, it came with the distant sound of beeping monitors, the faint scent of antiseptic, and the sensation of cotton sheets beneath her palms. She was in a hospital bed, her hospital bed, for in her arm, oxygen nasal cannula resting lightly beneath her nose. For a moment, she didn't move. Didn't speak. Didn't breathe. Because if she acknowledged she was awake, she'd have to acknowledge the last thing she'd heard before she fainted. She heard voices just outside her room. She fainted due to acute stress, Epiphany was saying. Her vitals stabilized fast. Physically she's fine. She didn't hit her head, came Liz's voice. No, Epiphany replied. But emotionally? I don't know what the hell that man said to her. Then another voice, Sidwell's voice. How long until she wakes? Epiphany's tone hardened. That depends on whether she wants to. Silence. Britt swallowed hard. A moment later, Epiphany and Liz walked away, leaving Sidwell standing alone outside her glass door. Britt closed her eyes, but too late. He had seen she was awake. He walked inside quietly. Britt, he whispered. I'm so deeply sorry. I should have said it more gently. She stared at him with a hollow emptiness. You lied to me. Her voice was cold, cracked. My entire life, every story, every trauma, everything about where I come from, it's all a lie. You were a baby, Sidwell whispered. Your mother made the decision. She thought you'd be safer if the world believed you were Faison's child. Britt's stomach churned. Safer, she hissed. Being tied to a madman? A criminal? A sociopath? That was safer. Sidwell flinched. Liesl feared the people targeting me. My company, my enemies, my past. I wasn't a good man then, Britt. Oh, but Faison was a better option, she spat, her voice breaking. Sidwell closed his eyes, tortured. She believed the world already feared him enough not to hurt anyone connected to him. It was twisted logic, but she was terrified. Britt felt tears burning hot behind her eyes. I can't do this, she whispered. I can't rewrite my whole identity based on one conversation. You don't have to accept me, Sidwell said softly. I just couldn't keep the secret anymore. Not when I see the woman you've become. Not when I see what you've survived. You deserve the truth. Britt shook her head. No, she whispered. I deserved the truth 20 years ago. News traveled quickly in Port Charles. By the time Britt had been moved out of the bed and into a chair, rumors had already begun to swirl. Britt fainted in a meeting. Some corporate guy upset her. Is she sick again? Is she pregnant? Did she get bad test results? Every theory except the truth. Britt wanted to scream. She wanted to hide. She wanted to deny it all. But most of all, she wanted to understand. Sidwell hadn't pushed further. After speaking with her briefly, he had left the hospital, telling her he would give her space. But space didn't help. Space only made the questions louder. By evening, Britt decided she needed answers from the only person who could give them. Her mother. Liesl arrived at Britt's call within 15 minutes, her coat flaring dramatically behind her as she swept into her daughter's office. Britt Chen, she exclaimed, clasping her face. Epiphany said you fainted. Are you ill? I swear if this is another stress-induced episode, I will dose whoever upset you with. Mother. Britt stepped back. I need the truth. Liesl blinked. Truth about what, darling? Britt's voice trembled. About my father. Liesl froze. Completely. Her eyes darted away, just for a second, but it was enough. You knew, Britt whispered. You knew I wasn't Faison's. Liesl swallowed, her face filled with guilt. Britt. No excuses. Britt's voice cracked. Just tell me everything. Liesl took a deep breath, lowering herself into a chair. Very well, she said softly. You deserve to know. Liesl's confession was both everything Britt expected and everything she couldn't bear to hear. Yes, she and Sidwell had once had a brief, passionate affair, long before Liesl's loyalty to Faison had hardened into obsession. Yes, Britt had been born into chaos, political enemies, financial enemies, scientific enemies. Liesl was dangerous. Sidwell was dangerous. Being their child would have painted a target on Britt before she even had a name. Yes, Liesel had chosen to say Britt was Faison's, partly to protect her and partly because Liesel had convinced herself that the association would give Britt a powerful shield in the criminal underworld. Because I loved you, Liesel whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. Because I thought I was doing what would keep you safe. Sidwell wanted to be a father, but he was hunted by powerful people.
I feared losing you. Britt stared at her mother, numb. You also feared losing Faison, she said quietly.
Liesel flinched. That too, she admitted in a whisper.
Britt felt something inside her shatter.
You made me believe I was the daughter of a monster, Britt whispered. You made me feel tainted, twisted, doomed from the start. Every time I wondered why I was cold or impulsive or reckless. I blamed him. Because you told me to. Liesel reached for her. Britt Chen. No, Britt stepped away. You let me grow up believing I had evil in my DNA. You let me believe I was unlovable.
Liesel's voice broke. I am sorry. So sorry.
If I could go back.
But you can't, Britt whispered. Silence. Liesel's tears fell freely.
Sidwell is not perfect, Liesel said shakily. But he wanted you. He always wanted you.
Britt closed her eyes, overwhelmed.
I need time, she whispered. Hours later, as Britt sat alone on the hospital rooftop, her place of refuge, she heard footsteps behind her.
She didn't turn. I figured you'd come, she said dully.
Sidwell stood beside her, hands in his pockets, looking out over the glittering city. I'm sorry your mother carried that alone, he said softly.
Britt let out a bitter laugh. She didn't carry it alone.
She dumped the consequences on me.
Sidwell winced.
I know.
For a moment, neither spoke.
Then Britt asked, barely above a whisper. Why now?
Sidwell exhaled slowly.
Because I'm not well, he said finally. Because time is catching up to me. Because I've lived a life full of power, success, and money, but not family. And the older I get, the more I realize how hollow that is. Britt stared at him, stunned.
Are you dying? She asked. No, he said gently. Not dying. But I'm not the man I used to be.
And I didn't want to leave this world with you believing a lie. Britt's throat tightened.
I don't know how to feel, she whispered.
You don't have to feel anything yet, Sidwell replied. Just let yourself exist with the truth. One day at a time. Britt looked away, tears sliding silently down her cheeks.
I spent my whole life trying to escape my father, she whispered.
And now it turns out he was never even mine. Sidwell touched her shoulder lightly, hesitantly, like he was afraid she'd pull away.
She didn't.
You were never doomed, he said gently.
You were never broken. You were never cursed.
You were simply my daughter, born into complicated circumstances.
Britt closed her eyes.
And I would like the chance, Sidwell added quietly, to know you. If you'll let me.
Britt didn't answer right away. Minutes passed.
The wind tugged at her hair, the city lights flickered in the distance, and the heaviness of the day settled around her like a blanket she didn't know how to shed. But slowly, very slowly, her hand drifted towards Sidwell's. He didn't move.
He didn't breathe.
He simply watched, hope glowing softly in his eyes, as Britt's fingers brushed his.
She didn't take his hand. But she didn't pull away either. For now, that was enough. For now, that was everything.
Over the next days and weeks, the truth of Britt's parentage slowly began to ripple through Port Charles.
Some were shocked. Some were suspicious. Some were supportive. Nicholas returned from Europe and offered quiet empathy.
Austin congratulated her on surviving yet another insane twist in her lineage. Carly was surprisingly kind, telling Britt that family secrets were a universal plague. Even Sam offered a soft moment of understanding. But the most unexpected change was within Britt herself. For the first time in her life, she wasn't defined by Faison's shadow. She wasn't trapped by a legacy of madness or manipulation. She wasn't tainted by a bloodline of evil.
She was simply Britt Westbourne.
And for the first time since she was a child, she felt free.
Sidwell took his time.
He didn't push.
He didn't intrude.
He simply made himself available, showing up for coffee, sending her articles he thought she'd like, asking about her day, offering quiet support. Britt found herself slowly, cautiously, letting him in.
Trust wasn't easy, but beginnings weren't supposed to be perfect.
They were supposed to be real. One cold December evening, Britt invited Sidwell to the hospital's boardroom for a private meeting. When he arrived, she was already seated, a folder in front of her.
He hesitated.
Is this bad news? Britt shook her head, pushing the folder toward him. Open it. Sidwell lifted the cover and froze. Inside was a stack of documentation, DNA verification, legal paperwork, and a notarized affidavit.
At the top was a single sentence.
I, Britt Westbourne, acknowledge Grant Sidwell as my biological father. Sidwell looked up, stunned. Britt, are you sure?
She swallowed hard.
I'm not ready for everything, she said softly. I can't promise a lifetime of perfect father-daughter bonding. I can't promise I'll forgive everything overnight.
But she forced a trembling breath.
I can promise I'm willing to try. Sidwell's eyes filled with tears.
He didn't hug her.
He didn't push. He simply nodded, deep, emotional, grateful. That's all I ever hoped for, he whispered.
Britt smiled faintly.
Then let's start fresh, she said.
No lies. No secrets. No past mistakes. Just the truth. Sidwell smiled through tears.
A new beginning.
Britt nodded. A new beginning.